I lived in California for 27 years in San Francisco, and there's basically no weather there. It's it's just every day is pretty much the same. Maybe a little bit of change in the wind or the temperature, but that's about it. And I've really come to enjoy being in the land of seasons here on the East Coast for the last 7 years. And winter is one that is particularly unique for me. That's one of the ones that was really missing in San Francisco. Because there's nothing quite like the stillness of the woods in the winter after the snow. It makes the world a tangible temple in a very experiential way. Because it's not just that it's quiet, there's a stillness that brings a certain profundity to the mind, a certain peace to the mind. And I've really enjoyed that aspect of it. And I'm did read a book a while back actually called Contemplative Prayer by Thomas Merton. He touches on that same kind of feeling in this paragraph here in chapter 11. He asks a question, what is the purpose of meditation in the sense of prayer of the heart? And it's the stillness of winter, that stillness of rest. He says, in the prayer of the heart, we seek first of all the deepest ground of our identity with God. To go in and be so quiet about the adopted definitions of mind and purpose and body and personality. To quiet all of the sounds, all of the cacophony of that constant banging of what we need to do, want to do, should do, who we think we are, what we think we are. But to go interior and to, as he says here, to find the deepest ground of our identity in God. We do not reason about dogmas of faith or the mysteries, as it were. We leave those things behind. Those are noise at that level. When one approaches the divine, it's not about churches and religions and rituals and dogmas and doctrines. Those are all simple scaffolding for coming to a realization, to a tangible understanding of ourself, of the self, common to all. We seek rather to gain a direct existential grasp, a personal experience of the deepest truths of life and faith, finding ourselves in God's truth. And I really appreciate this understanding that spiritual life is about experience. It's about the real. It's not about faith stories. It's not about hereafters. It's not about cosmologies and philosophies. It's about a very profound stillness of real experience in the moment that refreshes your interior world. Inner certainty depends on purification. This inner certainty, this stability within, depends on purification. And what is that purification? Again, it's that removal of me and mine, which comes when the spirit identifies with the limited and restricted notions of personality and body. That it's to purify yourself of all of those defined states, those defined responses, those defined interactions of you and this sense of other. It's removing a sense of me and mine, which leaves behind it a lingering piece of oneness that is so beautifully freeing. The dark night rectifies our deepest intentions. Yes, it's self-correcting. To be in stillness inside, to be in that quietness of settling it all down, it helps you to reorient, to align with what you are and who you are. In this silence of this night of faith, we return to simplicity and to a sincerity of heart. We learn recollection, which consists in listening for God's will, in direct and simple attention to reality. It's turning all of your sense of being into an open awareness, not hearing yourself, not reflecting your own ideas around the interior space of yourself, but it's a retreat of that personality. It's a retreat of that need to make noise, that need to act, that need to do, that need to understand, where these subtle truths of being become apparent when they're not overshadowed by the big noises of the gross and material world. Recollection is awareness of the unconditional. That unconditional is that love, that intelligence, that being. It's finding the source and repository of all love that lies quietly within, in a strong and stable and unconditioned space of continual giving and receiving simultaneously. Prayer then means yearning for the simple presence of God, for a personal understanding of His Word, for knowledge of His will, and for capacity to hear and to obey. It is thus something much more than uttering petitions for good things, external to our own deepest concerns. Prayer then means a yearning for the simple presence of God, that simple presence of love, absolute, that simple presence of fulfillment, of eternity, of rest, for a personal understanding of His Word. What is His Word? That vibration which is all of this experience of being. I mean, if you go to the Christian scripture, first chapter of John, everything is a manifestation of Word. You know, Jesus, it talks about being that particular manifestation in flesh. But he goes on to say that the entire world is a manifestation of the Word, a manifestation of the activity of God. God in action is this world that we experience. So we hear and we listen for a capacity to hear and obey Him. Now this is interesting, this idea of obeying Him, because in the truth of the matter, God is one without a second. There is no separation between us. And so who is it that we're obeying? We're obeying a forgotten self. We're obeying a forgotten ideal, a birthright that's within us. A birthright to love, to be compassionate, to be connected, to be authentic. And this is part of that reorienting of ourself, returning to what's important in life and leaving behind the stresses and anxieties of things and actions, which are all temporary and come and go. So it's a return to the stable sense of being that is continuous and always present within us, that gives us a confidence, gives us a strength. It is thus something much more than uttering petitions for good things. So it's not just that prayer. Contemplative prayer is the experiential existence of the divine within, and turning all of our faculties into a receptive organ of understanding, of knowing a oneness, of knowing a togetherness.